excited to introduce you all to Taylor Bikowski. Taylor is the Global Event and Strategy Manager at Red Hat. In that position, they focus on the annual external flagship events and regional forums. Taylor is a neurodivergent powerhouse who leads with vulnerability, transparency, and empathy in her role as the global co-chair of the Mental Health and Neurodiversity DEI community. So welcome, Taylor. I'm so excited to get to speak with you today. If you want to come off mute and turn your camera on, you're more than welcome to. Taylor, why don't you join me up on the stage here? There we go. And we can stop our screen sharing and kind of get going on today's event. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that intro before we dive in?
Yeah, hi everyone, and hello again, Meg. So just a little bit also deeper about me. So I am neurodivergent, diagnosed combination ADHD. I'm an HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. I have anxiety disorder, depression, PTSD, and an extreme gluten and dairy allergy, which will come up in our talk as well. But yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So in case you haven't been on, prior summits or chat and learn series, I'm fairly open about this, but I also am part of the neuroatypical or neurodiverse community. I have a lot of diagnoses and conditions similar to Taylor. I have bipolar disorder type 2. I live with ADHD, highly recurrent major depressive disorder, and anxiety and depression. So much fun stuff that just it's like a wonderful tossed salad of just garbage. So yeah. All right. So Taylor and I were able to connect before today's session, and we found a very fast friendship and, kind of kindred spirits in a lot of ways when it comes to this subject. Taylor, is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Do you want me to share your slides? What order do you want to tackle this in?
That'd be great. Why don't we throw those on and I can kind of talk through that real quick if we get going.
Yeah, sounds good. Go. And share screen. There you go.
Perfect. Go ahead and hit next. All right, so just a quick decorum to go over trigger warning. This content might have mentions of trauma, PTSD, variety of other mental health conditions, codependency, sexism, racism, societal inequality, and or spirituality. Mental health conditions do exist and are prevalent globally. Personal lived experience is a type of expertise, and approach with curiosity rather than judgment, and acknowledge privilege. Thank you so much for showing that. And
I very much appreciate that call out. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. It's we do that for all of our community syncs. It really helps just set the foundation. And before we begin, because I also got locked out of my house 1 hour prior to this session, if we could just indulge me just for a quick mindful moment, and those on the call, feel free to join in. If not, just hang out with us. So, right, it's at the end of the day, we're all experiencing this global pandemic. War is happening overseas, and there is polarizing events happening here. So I just want to help everyone get present so we can really deep dive. So either where you're sitting, close your eyes, put your feet flat on the ground, or gaze downward. All right, so drop your shoulders, relax your forehead, relax your jaw, drop your shoulders again. Take a deep breath. We're going to go in through the nose really slowly. We're going to hold at the top and then breathe out through our mouth. So in through our nose, hold at the top, breathe out. Let's do one more time. Breathe in through your nose, hold at the top, and out. Thank you so much. Let's get going.
Yeah. All right. So like Taylor had said, both of us are fairly new to the neurodiversity community, and we are fairly new on our own personal journeys with what, our various diagnoses and conditions really mean to us. Now, Taylor, I wanted to talk a little bit about, when we had connected earlier, we talked a lot about how we mask different parts of ourselves, parts of our conditions, parts of our personalities. And I mean, everybody does this in some form in their daily life, whether it's, making kind of pushing forward your more professional self at work, your more, fun-loving self with your friends, that kind of thing. But let's talk a little bit about what masking means in this case, and what people who maybe are neurotypical or don't have experience with this should know about masking.
Absolutely. So pretty much what masking is, it's camouflaging your potential true personality, and it's putting on different layers, different skins in order to show up in a safe way for you. And what I found through a lot of this healing and growth that I've partaken in the last year and a half, my personality was made up of masking and trauma personality. So what I've been doing is, is dissolving that mask, and it's really fascinating, all the new findings and what I am way more particular on. So for this call, for example, levels of masking for me is intentionally speaking a lot slower and reminding myself to speak slower. I speak at a very fast cadence, and that is always something that I've been told, my entire life, slow down. I actively edit and think while I'm talking, trying not to do that, trying to be very in the moment here. But that's difficult, right? Especially when you're in corporate world. You have to speak a certain way. You have to.
There's like assimilation that kind of is demanded, right?
Exactly. And that really falls into a lot of nuances when it comes to being your most authentic self, but also having the right professional mask. For me in conversations, it's ensuring I don't talk too much, don't take up too much of that talk time, maintaining appropriate eye contact, watching my tone, mimicking body language, depending on the situation, really trying not to curse. Cursing for me, I like to add a little spice to my sentence.
It's the salt of conversation, man. It goes on everything. And it's just, sometimes you just need that emphasis.
So good. Right. But that's not accepted nor, in a lot of arenas, pretty much. But for me, growing up with the trauma that came in for me was a lot of people pleasing. I went through the stages, recovering people pleaser, but language is really strong. So we are no more. But it's through that, it was learning what people wanted to hear and speaking to what people wanted to hear as opposed to what I actually felt. And I've masked for so long that sometimes I don't even know that I'm doing it. A lot of people don't know that.
It becomes second nature. You don't really realize that how much you've done of it until you start kind of this process, right?
Exactly. So, and masking, right? It's not just ADHD. And like you mentioned, everybody has some form. You need forms of masking to be able to show up in how society is constructed. But
it's also to keep us safe. I feel like our brains do it because it's something that helps ease or streamline interactions.
Exactly. And that falls into too, just the highly sensitive person. What that really is just sensory processing. So nervous system, I experience if all emotions were on a globe and everyone, that's your range from the middle of the core out, mine just have a bit more of an intensity. So by demasking, I'm finding out how specific and particular I actually am that I just have not been my entire life. And it's been an amazing and frustrating adventure so far.
Oh yeah. I mean, it requires a lot of vulnerability. And I feel like especially for so many people, we can only share our lived experiences, right? And, especially for me as, the holding all of the privilege and resources that I do, the journey to diagnosis can look completely different for so many people. And so it's important to know that every neurodiverse person you meet is not going to have the same experience. Some people are believed when they start talking about these kinds of things to family or friends or their doctors, and other people have to go through a whole mess of just garbage to even get someone to listen to them. And you're right, that masking happens so often that it's not until you start pulling this all apart that you realize how many times you actually do it. I know when we had connected over the weekend, we talked about, how in some ways you kind of mourn the person that you were. I used to be able to like plan stuff like you wouldn't believe. If you were going on a vacation, you wanted to go with me. You'd have a great time. I would have way overthought everything. And it was just all perfect because I would spend weeks, if not months, agonizing over details. And I thought that was just something I did because I enjoyed it. Now I know it's something that my anxiety liked because it made my anxiety feel more important and productive and helpful than it really was. But I do still kind of miss that. Not enough to, stop taking meds that I'm on or not go to therapy, but enough that like it deserves to be recognized,
Exactly. I love it pointed out. And that was a great example, really, because so what triggers for me is like, right, like a lot of things with the neurodivergent individuals, we hear productivity and the fact that your worth, your self-worth is based on this productivity. And we were talking, I used to be able to produce a lot. And as Nick Offerman said, don't, half-ass many things, whole-ass one thing.
Oh God, I love that quote so much.
My favorite. But I was whole-assing all the things and it's just running me into the ground. And so now that I've removed off of a lot of these layers of that anxiety, like you mentioned, it's not there. And sometimes I miss being able to just sit down and crank out a whole bunch of things. And now my brain, it's almost getting more ADHD because of this unmasking, because I'm leaning into it and learning more about it. But my mental health balance is becoming much better. We're not all the way there, but
I mean, honestly, none of us are all the way there. And I feel like it's, kind of learning or realizing that we are in one of the first generations of continuous learning culture. There's just going to be so many advances we all have to learn throughout our lives. And I feel like this kind of, for lack of a better term, gets sort of piled on top of all of that of, something else that some people with neurodivergences have to deal with and have to, kind of learn how to handle. All right. So one of the things that was like the main subject of what we wanted to talk about is the how people are discovering these non-apparent, we'll say disabilities. So if that language is not great for you, please let us know in the chat. But
I actually, it's not. I like non-apparent. That's what that's the term that we're looking for right now, and that's why it's helpful is because the language is so crucial in this community. I mean, language is important all around. But the biggest thing I'm finding is there are some polarizing concepts and terms, even within the community, right? Yeah. And talking about a mental health condition versus mental health illness versus disability, non-apparent. So really with that, the non-apparent, it's what you can't initially see. So for me, you can't necessarily see the ADHD unless you're in a great long conversation with me and it's going around in a circle and not linear. But you can also see I'm very, very allergic right now to gluten and dairy. And that falls into accessibility of just being able to eat out and what that looks like. But, see, there we go. It's, I get deep dive and then I completely forget.
Nope, I do the same thing.
So with the discovery, we got back there. So I actually, as you mentioned, like new to this discovery, but wanting to point out, right, like ADHD happens from when you were born. It definitely, there's environmental factors that can increase and whatnot, but it's also not something that just goes away. It's how your brain, it has executive function. It's how you're wired. So that's a good kind of debunking. And so I didn't know. Nobody knew really. We didn't know what ADHD was, right? Like as soon as we've said it, you've probably gotten a picture in your head, this little white boy child running around chaotically. And that's one, your stereotype. But that chaoticness was just in my head. It wasn't physically coming out. Sometimes that's why I'm standing right now, because it feels good to be able to move. And I don't normally get to, because that's part of masking. You have to stay very straight. You can't move for any calls because it's distracting. So all of that has just been inside my head. And I didn't know that I was as tired and depleted as I was, until all this anxiety was coming off.
Yeah.
And in a very short amount of time, I discovered that, there's wonderful. I get a lot of content off of TikTok. It's amazing.
Oh God, it's embarrassing how much stuff I learned from TikTok and Instagram, truly.
It's amazing. Like there's actually so many great tips, and especially, if your page mine is all therapists and neurodivergent individuals, but things learning from there, I started asking me the questions, and it was, do I have autism? Do I have ADHD? Do I have borderline personality disorder? It was just the questions started asking when I heard people talking about their experiences that sounded identical. I have never felt so seen and heard. And we have these incredible communities. They're the diversity, equity, inclusion communities at my work. And they've been there, the neurodiversity and mental health community. And a big part of this is you'll hear the word imposter syndrome. If you don't know what that is, Google that after the session. There's going to be a lot of terms, by the way. If start a list and do some research after, for sure. But pretty much finding that, meeting some incredible people that got me into the door, and it truly was life changing. Like I've never felt that type of support and community, and people who just know, right? Like when we got on a call, it was instant.
Oh my God, y'all, I wish you could have seen it. It was like, we were both doing like one of these, like basically the whole time.
Exactly.
Finding community is so huge. We're seeing that in the chat thread as well. Sam is saying, I really appreciate the discussion on masking. Thanks for articulating this so clearly. Sally also says, I can relate so intimately to so much of what's been shared. So yeah, we love doing that sharing.
Love that. Let's keep going. So diving in more, pretty much why I got even started was we had to do these like marketing webinars for just our daily job, but they didn't have a speed up option on the video. And when I say, for me, hearing things in normal speed on a topic that I'm not necessarily interested in, it feels like 100 nails down a chalkboard over and over and over again. And it got me annoyed and passionate and angry enough to just figure out, how do we fix this? And also, right, English is not your first language. We need a slow down option as well. So I very much went down, deep dove into that, where I met the current leadership, and they were planning, or they were trying to plan World Mental Health Day. And World Mental Health, or the company that acquired us, I found out that they had a whole week dedicated to World Mental Health Week and had more sessions than we did at our flagship, tech event. And I said, oh, we can do better. And I went in with this goal of wanting as much intersectionality and representation as possible, so that somebody else potentially could just be listening and just seeds planting, light bulb going off of, oh, that sounds like something I've gone through, or wow, I know this person has also been through that, right? Like we're just trying to increase empathy. You're just trying to get acknowledgement and understanding. And, it combined passions of event management and mental health. And I just kept going down that path, and I ended up just really thriving with it and finding something that I truly loved. But this kind of categorizes into, I actually went through a pretty deep depression wave. And the irony was not lost on me. I was planning World Mental Health Week, and I was in a deep depression wave. I had very intense, at the time I was doing 33 global events, a mixture of virtual, hybrid, and in person on 2 different platforms. That could also have contributed to some of the stress and anxiety, maybe.
Helpful, but yeah.
But so I had the right in front of me. It's all right. I have to be on calls, and I'm feeling. It was noticeable. Like this is my baseline. It's a bit more up. It's positive. It's enthusiastic, and it was like a truck hit me. And it was like having to go through a bog and just walk through mud just to even be, just a human. And I was on a call. I got asked, how I was feeling, what was wrong. And I lied. I said I was sick. And immediately, lying about my mental health actually was making me feel worse. Yeah. So I had that aha moment, be the change you want to see. And I started telling stakeholders and people that I was actually in a depression wave. And let me tell you, there's a reason why mental health is stigmatized and why people don't talk about it. I definitely received very similar to what I anticipated that I would. You worry about judgment, people bookmarking it in your head, thinking that you can't produce maybe as high quality or high work. They start worrying about you because you're actually vocalizing. I got a lot of, I'm worried about you, but here's the thing, that didn't do anything for me. That just made me think more about that person worrying about me than me actually being attuned to my mental health and fighting through it. So for me, right, like my depression, I say waves. And I used to actually say, we were talking about this, of not actually vocalizing what it is. And it makes it hard. So much worse. It diminishes the severity of it. So I used to call it just feeling down. And what did you say? You used to say,
that I was like feeling fuzzy today, or I was a little slow, or something like that. Like a lot of mine kind of turned into feeling like I had a migraine a lot of the time. I actually induced vertigo on myself for like a period of like 12 or 13 months that truly was like completely, nobody could figure out. None of my health, like physical health doctors had any idea what was going on. And magically, once I was, better, I was better medicated, better therapized, like in a much better place. I wasn't getting vertigo episodes 3 to 4 times a day.
Amazing.
Like our bodies are bonkers. Like it's
bananas. We're quite complex beings, but so lying about it made it worse. Talking, actually being open, saying that I had depression out loud for the first time in my life throughout this experience. I had to fight through it, and it was really shitty. I've never been more passionate about destigmatizing mental health than I am due to all of that, because the majority of us, we don't have a commute. You don't have a physical leaving and coming out of a space anymore. Once, as like a lot of people, I worked out and slept in one space. And, I vary with sensory wise, like I'm able to play with lighting and sense and, different kind of leaving for walks and whatnot. But at this point, everyone, I don't want to generalize that, everyone is going through a global pandemic, no matter what. That is huge. And that is something for your mental health. There's now 100 other factors that keep coming up every single day, let alone the need to be able to open your computer and show up as your best self, or whatever your corporate mask self can be.
Yeah.
And we're just still not talking about it. We're not actually having just a conversation about, hey, anxiety makes my chest feel absolutely tight and rigid and feel like I have shortness of breath. Depression makes me either feel like I am outside of my body or just completely hit by a truck and I can't do anything else. Very similar. The celiac gluten comes with its own form of depression, which is
of course. Yeah,
absolutely. So you have all this layer, and like I'm dealing right now, I have high anxiety that I am trying to find a better balance. So like I am not an expert in how to fix it. I am becoming an expert in how we can actually talk about it and ask the hard questions so that we can actually destigmatize mental health.
Yeah. All right. We've been asked a couple of great questions. We only have 3 minutes left. Taylor, you're going to have to come back. It's just going to have to happen. Mandy had a good question about accommodations, and had asked, if that it can be obviously posed that it can be really a lot easier said than done to ask for accommodations. She had said, apologies if I'm misgendering, but she had said, If something is framed as like a sensory issue, I have much less of a hard time asking for, accommodations, like if it were like for migraines or something. But it's also, kind of couched in that understanding of like, I don't know what I'm going to get back from this. And so they had asked if you had any advice about owning it or owning that shift and kind of building understanding there. And personally, I got my head wrapped around this a lot in thinking of it in physical terms as like glasses. Okay. So like I can see you right now. Everything's vaguely fuzzy. I cannot read the chat. I can't read this. I need my glasses to do that. So of course I'm going to put them on. But if these glasses don't belong to me and I can't bring them to the office with me and I need something changed at the office, then I need that accommodation that like that's what you would need. So I don't know if that helps, Mandy, for you, but like for me, thinking of it in terms of physical health and grounding it there makes it a lot easier to explain not only to, neurotypical people, but also to like advocate for yourself when that is, so huge. Taylor, do you agree?
I plus 100%. I'd also say, one, asking for accommodations, especially if you're asking and it's not necessarily received. Keep trying to say it in different ways. Like I realized my biggest thing is overwhelm of task management. So I have now just become more confident. Like the more you do it, the more you say it, the more I have said that I have ADHD, the more that it feels way less stigmatized, even in that sense. So just keep practicing, keep trying it. And that really comes in. I know like self-care is such we need a sunset, the word self-care, because it truly is so crucial, but finding what works for you and being able to advocate, it's just practice. And then finding that community to practice with.
Think about it in terms of what you need. This isn't something that would be like, oh, I'd love to have ice cream delivered to my desk every day at 3. This is something you need. So think of it in those terms. We are at the end of time, but Sally had sent in a question. So Sally, thank you for submitting that. I'm passing it on to Taylor. I will try and also reply to you in the chat thread here as soon as we're done today. But Taylor, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us. This conversation, I hope it's been helpful for other people, but it's absolutely, been very impactful for me. So thank you so much for spending your time with us and bringing your amazing energy and, your experiences for us.
Thank you. If there's any extra questions too, we can throw back up the Instagram, ask me.
Yeah.
Just answer right on there. And you can also, I'll be making a lot of content on TikTok to make it more manageable, easier to understand.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to throw any links you got to send us into this the Zoom chat, I will make sure that they get over to the website. And I cannot wait to speak with you again. I'm sure it'll happen before we get you back on Power to Fly's platform, but I also can't wait to chat more with you on platform and see how many other people we can help and kind of create that community with.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, y'all. I appreciate it.